Facebook, yeah? Everybody say hi to Lynn. Hey.
I actually came to hang around and sing, but then I decided to be a moment of entertainment. And so I am the author, along with photographer Robert Burrow, of this book on Alviso, which includes great pictures of yacht club history. If anyone's interested in them, I do have a few books. And how many people think they know a little bit about the history of Alviso? Do you think you know? You know, Alviso is so much older than San Jose, and it originally was the dock of St. Clair for the mission, because when Mission San Francisco de Assis was established, they couldn't easily grow produce and food. It was just too damp. And so they made a twin mission, the mission of St. Clair. And long ago in Italy, Clare and Francis were the ecological saints. They were kids who I grew up in Menlo Park on the peninsula, and they kind of rejected that kind of life, and they lived simply. They were interested in ecology. So we live near San Francisco and in Alviso, which is really the dock of St. Clair. Alviso passed through a lot of cycles. Native Americans did a good job with Alviso. There were still berries and fish and fountains and wonderful conditions. They didn't intrude on the natural beauty of Alviso. And then there were Spaniards. We know a lot about their history in the missions. And there's a legend that says that those soldiers who were unkind to Native Americans were sent over to San Jose, which was not yet a city. So Alviso was much older than San Jose and older than much of its surrounds. And then there were the Californios, who were well-to-do Mexicans, people who came in and started a lot of early agricultural industry. And then finally the Yankees, which is most of us tonight, who under what we gave ourselves the privilege of eminent domain to come and take it all over from people who'd been here a lot longer. But in any case, Alviso became this dock and a port, and writers like Jack London and his wife Charmian would sail in. It was a cool place to be, and it's a cool place to be now. And we can see that the industry and some of the super materialism has not swamped Alviso. And now with San Jose's mayor clearing a conduit to the bay, it's such a special place. I feel when I drive in here that I'm driving across time. And I don't know if some of you feel it, but there's just an energy to this place. And the Yacht Club, established in the late 1880s, first as a yachting club of the South Bay and then retitled South Bay Yacht Club, goes way back. And it was really established, its building in 1903, called the Blue Lady at that point. But it had to be moved because of floods, promised by City of San Jose not to have the floods, but we did. And it was moved and recreated in its ambiance. I can't think of a warmer place to go on a Friday night. And I wonder if anybody has any questions about the history of Alviso or the history of the Yacht Club. Yes, or comments. Yes. Well, I know one thing about the 1906 earthquake, and that was Agnew Developmental Center. I passed Agnew coming here. On one of the longest roads, by the way, you can start in Los Gatos on Main Street, go down Bascom Avenue to Lafayette and Washington and Gold, and you're in Alviso. And oxen used to bring goods from the mission along that same path. As far as the 1906 earthquake, one thing I do know is that Agnew, which was first in a kind of idealistic place for the mentally ill where they were well treated, and later became a place for people with developmental disabilities. I know, I have a gifted daughter and a special daughter. And when the earthquake hit, Agnew was the hardest hit by the San Francisco earthquake. The administrative offices were all reinforced with brick, but the places that the patients lived just collapsed. And there was a doctor at that time who had, quote, lost his mind and been mentally ill for years, a board hit him, he came back to his senses, and he went around and treated all the patients. So that's in our book of stories. So, anybody else have a question or thought on Alviso? Pardon me? My dad was the director of the United States not the director, but the management officer for the U.S. Geological Survey in Menlo Park. And he's in the book too because subsidence became a big issue. And there is a well-known man in Alviso, some of you may have been on his street. His name was Thomas Foon Chu. He had to be educated in San Francisco because there was a bias against Asian Americans then. But he came back to Alviso and he developed the second largest, most expert canning operation ever. He developed ketchup. He gave water through the Depression and World War II to folks, and 25,000 people came to his funeral. He had a cannery up on the Delta and in Palo Alto, which was then called Mayfair. So we see information on him when we come into Alviso. Any other questions or thoughts on Alviso or the Yacht Club? I won't take you away too long from your food. What is your thought?
What tribe of Indians were living in the area?
They were called coastal Indians or Ohlonies, which meant coastal. And they had been here 11,000 years, and they didn't try to straighten the Guadalupe River. They just lived gently on its banks, and they would have what it's coming back into vogue, tiny houses. And they would move. They would move their tiny house with the season. So they were great custodians for 11,000 years of this area. Anybody else have a comment, something you wanted to share or ask about Alviso? I love the ambiance of Alviso as an author and a painter, and I do paintings of this area. I think it's a wonderful place to go, and this yacht club keeps alive the real spirit of Alviso when it was a great shipping port. Though a small community, people are going to Hawaii and China, and before the railroad, it was really important to have waterborne goods to get up to that mission in San Francisco and so forth. When people came for the gold rush, apparently they would scuttle their boats in the San Francisco area, walk up the peninsula, walk through Milpitas and up into the gold country. And we didn't have the San Joaquin Valley then, my co-author said. So the East Foothills and Milpitas, fed by the shipping of Alviso, were really serving the gold rush, the Civil War era. It all came from this area. It's a very historic intersection that we live in, or we visit. After starting into the book, I found out that my children's great-great-great-grandmother ran the schoolhouse in Alviso on the border of Santa Clara, Mountain View, San Jose, Alviso, and she had a one-room schoolhouse with children of all ethnicity and did a great job. So I learned that later. Anybody else who wants to comment on the yacht club that Lisa and Dean are making available to us tonight? We're really getting to re-enter history. It's a good place to be, away from the hustle and bustle that we normally face.
I do have one question.
Yes, one question.
What is the factory and cannery and
I'm sorry, what?
What is becoming of the pickle factory and the cannery?
Currently?
Yeah, is that owned by, I understand, a Sicilian family, or the daughter lives across the street, or?
Well, I know that there were a lot of Portuguese families who came into Alviso from the Azores Islands. And they came to this area because they could the Azores are very steep and rugged, 1,000 miles out to sea, and they could handle some of the early agriculture that was done in the East Foothills. I know that the canneries employed people of all cultures and nationalities.
I mean, right next door was on.
Who can answer that question as to what's happening in the pickle factory currently?
The Gross family owns the warehouse just down the street.
Right?
Sorry.
Lisa has an answer.
So the Gross family owns the property next door to us. The yacht club owns this property. I'm not actually sure who owns the caving in cannery, but this entire area is in the National Registry of Historic Places, and that is why you can't do a lot with this area.
Yay.
We've had people try to come in and pay money and do things. There are 7 entities that actually control what we can do here and on the levee. You're never going to get permits from them. It took us 3 years to get a permit to replace our decrepit docks, and they wouldn't let us expand them. All they would let us do was foot for foot replace them.
Well, this is very unusual in our area, and I just listened to a lecture by Richard Santos at the Milpitas Historical Society, and I know that he and his descendants are committed to that outlook, committed to the outlook. Otherwise, this would have been swept over and looked like another, gas station, fast food, concretized area, and fortunately it isn't. In 1968, a group of women who were ecologically oriented in Burlingame appealed to Senator Don Edwards to start reclaiming the shoreline, because for a long period, San Jose could send its waste directly into the beautiful sloughs here. And there had been the water reclamation and the waste plants, but the reclaiming of the shoreline has really made a difference. This is one of the greatest ecological bird flyways in the Western Hemisphere. They're wonderful walks. I think we're fortunate to be back in the area in the dock of St. Clair, envisioned by Francis and Clare 1,000 years ago. It's a wonderful place. Well, if we don't have any other comments or questions, I'm really glad to have unexpectedly dropped in to be the entertainment tonight, and I'll be back next month to sing for fun. So thank you very much for having me. If you'd like a book or something, come up and ask me. Thank you.